Horse games are surprisingly old. If we put aside horse racing games, then the first horse game was released as far back as 1983. LP Casper Presents Equestrian. It was a basic scrolling game, semi-isometric, and included jumping over obstacles as they appeared. Simple, clean, not much to talk about. And that's pretty much what we can say about modern horse games as well. Despite over 40 years in the development race, horse games just can't seem to get over the first hurdle, some not even out of the starting gate. A game considered one of our best is Lucinda Green Equestrian Challenge. It was released in 2006, and it is a game about eventing, where you select a horse and take part in competition, dressage, show jumping and cross country, and the core gameplay is hitting space at the correct time. Although we can certainly see an evolution in graphics and to an extent gameplay, we can't deny that the fundamental core of the game, select a horse, take part in a competition, never really changed. And this brings me to the topic of today's video: what I hate in horse games. I'm gonna have to put a lot of caveats here. I have been asked before to explain what I would like to see in a horse game, to go into detail about what my ideal horse game would be. But as I wrote out the script, I realized that what I wanted more than anything was for a horse game just to be different in key aspects. So instead of listing what I want to see, I decided to list what I am tired of seeing. I also want to be clear, I'm not going to purely crap on features and ideas that I'm sure horse gamers do love. That's not the point of the video, rather to hopefully inspire developers to think a little outside of the box. I will try to be constructive, not just negative, but horse games desperately need a fresh injection of originality, or just Cthulhu, because everything is better with Cthulhu. Let's get into it. I hate grinding, because grinding is the lazy developer's best friend. The definition of grinding is, according to game developer, defined as when the player needs to do something over and over again in order to progress, seemingly for arbitrary reasons. Back in the day, reviewers and players often praised games for their length. The more game time you got, the more value a game had. Because PCs and gaming consoles simply couldn't handle large games, it meant that any game that offered more than a few hours of gameplay was properly praised. But players weren't stupid, and when a game started to drag its feet deliberately, it made their bullshit meters go off, and grinding became a dirty, dirty little word. It was there to extend player game time, not to give players a unique or interesting experience. It felt lazy. As a result, grinding could easily become the quit moment for a gamer, which is the exact point of play a player decides that this is not worth it, so they uninstall your game. If you as a developer are just thickening up that progress bar to force the player 10 hours to days of more play, you are a terrible, terrible person and should be blindfolded and put barefoot in a room with Lego. Pretty much how I feel about it. Now, there is a huge caveat here. If the gameplay is fun, the grind is often not a big issue, which is mostly the reason why people have softened towards grind today. Game designers have become smarter in making forced grind gameplay engaging. The problem is, horse games rarely fall into the fun or exciting or engaging gameplay category. I love, for example, Ranch of Evershine. It is a great little game, highly recommended, but the sheer amount of times I had to replay and replay and replay and replay and replay, and you get the idea. The same races over and over and over and over and over and again, it becomes ridiculous. It further causes a secondary issue. The races have no meaning anymore. Where before a race felt like an achievement for unlocking it, the fact that I can repeat it 6 times a day takes away the novelty and turns it into part of the grind, which is tragic. When grand elements become part of the mundane, it really does hurt the narrative of the world. I was once excited to take part in this competition, now it's just something I can repeat 20 times. This is of course a conundrum for indie developers. I said earlier that grinding is the lazy developer's friend, but really what I mean by that is that indie developers or small developers are going to be using grinding to save time. Small budget games mean you have to think in grinding gameplay format to ensure players have enough hours in game. Otherwise, you're going to have to put in a lot more time to ensure the game has unique content, not just repetitive content. It's a trade-off. Many hours spent playing versus less content for quality gameplay. And that is more or less the issue I have. Not the grind per se, but rather the repetitiveness of that grind and how it affects the world when that is all I'm doing. Another example of poor form of grind is Star Equestrian, a game that is so determined to force you to grind that it deliberately hides progression behind a paywall. A gambling paywall, you know, for kids. But Star Equestrian is getting its own video, so let's move on to the next point. I hate Western and English disciplines. If I see one more Western or English discipline in a horse game, I might potentially start suing companies for emotional damage.
emotional, damn it!
I do get it. This is a fantasy sort of thing, right? We want to imagine ourselves in the discipline we love, with a horse we made, winning at something we wish we could take part in. I also understand that technically we don't really have a lot of true discipline games that really scratch the itch we're looking for. We want to see a proper English horse game. I don't know why I hesitated there, but there really isn't a proper one for us to enjoy. Because what horse gamers want, really desperately, is Call of Duty. There have been thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of FPS games developed and made. The earliest versions of these games include Wolfenstein, Doom, Duke Nukem and Quake. What you might notice is that they are not war games. They are more leaning towards sci-fi, with some quirky humor. Despite the popularity of these games, what FPS players really wanted was a true war game. So when Call of Duty hit the shelves in 2003, it was everything players had wanted, and it sold like hotcakes, because the game scratched the itch. And so the genre was propelled onto its course. Despite numerous different styles of FPS games still being made, from fantasy to sci-fi, the true war games still stand the test of time, because that is what players wanted, what they yearned for. And horse games have never had that groundbreaking Call of Duty. As a result, players often ask for the same thing, a simulator horse game, where they can immerse themselves in not only owning horses and breeding them, but also play in a game that is fun, engaging, challenging, with English or Western style riding. We want Call of Duty for horse games. And that is very believable and understandable. So the solution, I believe, is really to start merging genres. So Ranch Rivershine is a prime example of this, where a cozy game developer made a horse game, blending the unique experience of the cozy grind with the care ride train compete mechanics. It worked exceptionally well, but cozy games were not the only ones to start this tentative merge. Equitania merges archery, magic and horses. Kimori mixes horses with an historical setting, and Horse Runner DX just made a runner with ponies. Cute game, go check it out. What we desperately want though is a horse simulator, and I know until that game lands, we're not really going to see true exponential creativity within the horse game genre, and until they're released, we're all just going to be watering at the mouth for a game that scratches the itch. But let's move on to the next one. I hate horse breeds. Let's talk about guns. First-person shooter games will be quick to tell you more guns do not equal better gameplay. It is the strategy within the guns that make for good gameplay. Battlefield 6 launched with around 45 guns and a total of 9 categories. Each of these categories serves a different purpose. They include sniper for the cowards, shotgun for the hillbilly, assault rifle for the basic bitch, submachine gun for the no-aim kamikazes. You can already see where I'm going with this. Despite having a good number of guns, developers focus on not only giving you a sense of progression, but ensuring the 9 different categories feel very different. That is to accommodate not only for playstyles, but to offer replay value, squeezing that multiple-hour gameplay they so desperately need for their investors. Horse games lost the memo along the way. Instead of creating unique horses, guns, with a distinct feeling or perhaps a progression, they instead make many horses, design them to feel and play exactly the same, and then make the coats and model slightly different before asking around $10 to $30 per horse. More if you're playing gacha. We are paying out of the bazookas for essentially cosmetics. Cosmetics to look at. Cosmetics to dress up and to breed. But of course, the breeding is going to cost you even more. And also, to be clear, to all the players who love lots of horse breeds, having a ton of horse breeds are really not the issue. That will always actually be a boon for games. Unlike FPS gamers, horse gamers place great emotional value on the horse they are riding in a game. Whether it was a childhood pony or a dream horse, there is a completely different connection to the horse than the gun. With that being said, what makes me angry is that they make them all the same. Because by just adding a bunch of horses, they strip each of these of their uniqueness. This isn't a Marwari, or an Andalusian, or a Shire. They are technically all Jorvik Warmbloods with a different model and slightly different stats. How sad is that? So my advice would be, have a wide range of breeds, sure, but ensure that there are at least umbrella groups, like with guns, to give players at least slightly more unique experiences for these breeds. Sport horses for competition, drafts for mountain riding, show horses for the show ring, and don't just make it about stats. Make these horses interesting. Make the world need them to be interesting. But let's move on to the next one. I hate bad stories. Stories are important. If it's poorly told, people will get annoyed, which is bad. But if it's boring, you are just going to have people not finish it, which is worse. Telling good stories is not easy, especially not if you're trying to be original in a genre that has no originality. Sorry, horse games. To tell good stories, you need to consider character, setting, emotional weight, goals, protagonists, antagonists, and of course, tension. This sort of goes hand in hand with the cozy issue. Horse games of late have fallen into this dreamlike state where nothing bad ever happens and all we have to do is climb on our pony and all is right with the world. There's nothing inherently wrong with minimal or sweet stories, but without tension or some stakes, we can't properly get invested in the goals we are setting. Good stories are so essential for good games, but at most what we get is, oh no, we are going to lose the farm, I must win the competition. Or, oh no, they're going to build a mall on our lovely land, we must win the competition. Which is really the second issue, because horse game writers tend to circle the exact same themes and elements, and we end up with horse games all feeling the same. But to be clear, you actually don't have to tell a story for a story to be present. For a very brief time, I was helping to write the story for a horse game. I won't say which game it was, but at the time I thought what would be pretty cool is if the world told a story more so than the game. So I had these challenges in my mind you had to complete to collect specific coins. One I made was the water challenge. So there is a tree in the middle of the lake. It's too slippery to climb, and the only way to reach the coin in the branches is while you are on horseback. But the horse refuses to go into the water. Eventually, you find some iron horseshoes. They are heavy, cumbersome, but you remember the old folk tale that fairies hate iron. You put them on the horse's hooves, and the horse walks into the water with no fear. And finally, you can reach the coin, which has the symbol of the Kelpie. Stories don't have to be directly told. They can be suggested. They can be inferred. But creating stories, visually or through dialogue, if done well, will always intrigue. I hate the roleplay tag. Okay, I'm gonna have to explain this. This has become so prevalent in horse games that I had to make a section for it. Many upcoming horse games are bragging that there are going to be, or are, role-playing games. I want to be clear, I love and respect the role-playing community. In a lot of ways, you guys are the lifeblood of horse games, especially for the online community, and I deeply respect all the work and time that you put in, and I am glad that you guys have games that you can explore that creativity with. With that being said, I don't think games need to dedicate themselves entirely to being role-playing game. It should be a perk, not a feature. Now I will get this out of the way. Roblox is a different beast. It is a free-form game where testing and pushing the boundaries of what you want to achieve is part of the experience. Same with Minecraft. Both of these are excellent spaces to start making games or learn how to mod. The thing is, both of them are games before they are role-playing experiences. I can still go and enjoy Roblox in game form without needing to roleplay. Same with Minecraft. They don't force roleplay, that's not the only thing they are about. The game had the building blocks, no pun intended, built in, making it possible for players to create these experiences while still having a game to play. Another example, of course, is Red Dead Redemption 2, hands down the main reason why horse roleplay became so ridiculously popular. Beyond being hyper-realistic huge and having the most realistic horse behavior in any game, it can also be modded up to its tits. This is the penultimate horse roleplay. Sims 4 and even Star Stable are two other examples of games sort of creating roleplay sandboxes by development. All of these games offer such a wide variety of options and freedom that it becomes these role players' go-to. And you know what? They look damn good. Which is the most important part of roleplay. The better it looks, the better for the role player, and the more freedom and options it has, and the easier it is to record in. Even better for the role player. I'm not trying to shoot down developers who want to make a roleplay their core game. Of course you can, and you should make a roleplay game if you really want to. I just think that roleplay should really be a perk of your game and not the entire reason your game exists. I hate multiplayer, the granddaddy of my frustration and the only one that has a mascot. Equinox Homecoming. Let's get this out of the way. I am not a fan of MMOs. I do not enjoy socializing with people in my game because it taints the experience. For me, games are a very personal experience. To play with someone else would be like reading a book alongside someone. I can't enjoy myself if I have someone over my shoulder. Granted, there are games I enjoy playing with friends. I often play with my sister, Phasmophobia, Deep Rock, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Forest. So many amazing multiplayer multiplayer or co-op games. Hell, even Alicia Online was a co-op or multiplayer game, and I enjoyed it. But these are games designed to be enjoyed with friends, so I don't feel like I'm missing out on an experience by enjoying it with them. In fact, it could be argued that it enhances the experience. And that is where the caveat comes in for MMOs. Does it enhance the experience? Of late, I've seen more and more indie devs pushing for multiplayer function in their game, as if before they even really consider what the game will be, they decide to make it multiplayer. There could be a few reasons for this. 1, they want to appeal to players and make the game more enticing. 2, they just think multiplayer games are more fun, so they want to make one. And 3, they are trying to create a game that will appeal to investors. Multiplayers will always make more money than single player, that is unfortunately a fact. And so we get to Equinox Homecoming, which is a game being developed by Blue Scarab, and it is hands down the best example of unneeded multiplayer ever in a game. The story, gameplay, dialogue, world are made for a single player. You play a named character with a definite backstory and plot. What the fuck? Making the game an MMO is like turning a 5-star restaurant into a buffet. You can do it, but I don't think the experience is what you were going for. Tragically, it would have made a brilliant single-player game. But it was killed. The single-player experience has been killed because money. I know I'm being extremely cynical, I apologize, but it irks me when so many great concepts are being actively harmed by this need to slap on the multiplayer. And this circles back to what I said before. It's not about if multiplayer looks good or sounds good, it is about whether it makes sense for the game you are developing, which is why brainstorming and planning is so important. Finally, it is so difficult to make a good multiplayer game. If you are a new developer, steer clear of this. Make something simpler. Learn your craft and make memorable experiences within your game. It is harder to do, for sure, but it will more than likely stand longer than a half-baked multiplayer experience. And those are my most hated elements in horse games. I know I was a little bit harsh in some of them, but I do hope you guys understand the spirit of where it's coming from. I really don't hate these elements. I hate that they are being overused or that they are being used improperly, and I do think that there are better ways to approach them. Horse games need to have a bit of a shake-up. I do think it is happening with a lot of these games, and I look forward to seeing what 2026 has to bring. But if you think that I've lost the plot, let me know in the comments below.